coming to you from Studio HQ. Welcome back to another episode of the Think Indie podcast, all things indie comics. And I am Dodgy in the mix, mixing it up with Paul Rabbit Gomez. What is happening?
How's everybody doing out there? I hope you're having a great week, and I hope you enjoy this broadcast.
Thank you, and I'm sure we will. This is the fourth episode, so thank you for joining us. If you're coming back, and if you are new to our podcast, welcome. As we have three other episodes to check out via Comic Crusaders, and it's all about indie comics. We're going to cover Indiegogo books. We're going to be covering the Kickstarter, Webtoon, which we're really excited about, as well as a book that we will review. And this is a podcast that gives hints and tips. And Rabbit, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background.
My name is Paul Rabbit Gomez, and I am a brand new writer and creator of comics. I got 3 comics out, including PTSD, Bushibu Circus Mystery, and Cryptic Haze, which all 3 have just got funded. Or the third one just got funded, but all 3 were funded on Kickstarter and are out there.
Yes, absolutely. And where can we find your books?
Well, currently they just got off Kickstarter, and I'm contemplating going to Indiegogo. I'm not sure, but at the moment they're also on chartercomics.com, so you can catch them there, and you can probably catch them on Indiegogo soon.
Excellent. Yes, PTSD is an amazing read, by the way. So do yourselves a favor and check it out if you can find it online. Just is there a website that we can check you out on, or is it just Facebook?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Paul Gomez 790, and mostly on Facebook. I'm definitely there.
Excellent. All right, we're going to be moving on with the show. I was really hoping to have Manny on. Fortunately, he's stuck in traffic. However, Buy Indie Comics Day is coming in 2022. It's Saturday, October 1st. Do yourself a favor. Reach out to your local comic book stores. And Rabbit, will you be doing the same as a creator yourself?
I'm definitely going to be reaching out. I know I got some comics in about 25 stores around here, so I know I've been talking to them about this and that. I don't know if I'm going to be doing an appearance on Indie Comic Day. I definitely hope to, but I know I'm doing an appearance on a Free Comic Day, so that's kind of exciting kind of thing.
Ooh, nice. But yeah, guys, if you can just reach out to your local comic book store. We're going to be covering this literally every episode of Think Indie Podcast. Is that Buy Indie Comics Day is a special event. Please let your local comic book stores be aware and celebrate indie comics. And and the reason why we say Buy Indie Comics Day, because a lot of these creators like Rabbit, Manny, Tracy, and a lot of others, is the fact that these are self-funded books. We got to buy these books to keep these creators creating, right?
Definitely. I mean, one of the hardest things is pulling it out of pocket to make that comic happen, and it helps out a great deal, especially with the support of the local comic book stores. I know it's helped me a huge amount, and I know it helps other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and the Think Indie creative question of the week. So what I'm excited for. And this week's question, or this episode's question, is, what do you do to keep you motivated? So what keeps you driving? Rabbit, what keeps you motivated in getting your comic beginning to end?
I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing, but I tell you what, after putting out my first comic and doing comic conventions, it really was meeting my customers and the excitement that they've had. I had one special gentleman that was at a convention, actually came back and bought a second ticket just to thank me for my comic. And that was huge. I mean, whenever I got to sit down that next time and start writing some more, that was definitely one of the things. That interaction with the people of after receiving and seeing and reading and enjoying that comic.
That's crazy. That's a beautiful story. Like, I'm sure you would have been wrapped. Like, there's no denying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing for me in my motivation is when I talk to other creators or if I show people my work and they give me some insight. And I think if even if it is like a compliment or even if it is like picking it apart, rather than just be like, no, this is the way I want it. It's actually good to get that little bit of insight or that opinion because you might think you have something great, but
Right.
but other people might see something better than great or
I
something
tell
that
you
could
what,
be.
I tell you what, whenever I was doing my first comic, one of the main things I had to do was go get me an editor. And that
Hmm.
constructive criticism, whether it was coming from my editor, the customers, reviewers, whether it was
Hmm.
good or bad, it fueled that fire because
Mm,
you want to do better. So
exactly.
any kind of review helps. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And just don't take it personal. Like sometimes you might have an idea that you think is great and it might be great, but if someone can say, look, just elaborate on it a little bit. I know when I created a story, the editor kept asking me why. Why is a person doing this? Why is a person doing that? I felt like I was in school. I felt like I was getting marked on my English, like why? And I had to actually write answers to each question and
Yeah.
then reconstruct my story. And it actually involved me actually creating a separate story altogether just to build this universe that if you're a first time reader, I know what I'm writing, I know what story I'm telling, but I need other people to understand as well. So that was the tricky part. And I think you're right. Getting an editor or
Yeah.
someone to sit with you and go, hey, just explain this, explain that, and you will find you'll get a much, much better story.
Yeah, because it works in your head, but sometimes you don't exactly translate it to that page. If you have
Mm,
someone that just takes a step back and views it, they might see it in a different way and then explain to you, hey, you might be seeing it through your creative eyes, but the customer is going to
yes.
see it differently.
Exactly. And you don't want a story that's going to come through confusing or,
Right.
you know, conflicting. So definitely it's a worthwhile getting someone to push it. But do you listen to music when you're writing or when you're creating?
I do. As a matter of fact, usually I have a TV show on or music
Yeah.
playing. Uh, I had an artist friend of mine. He used to draw, and he was a little bit I guess say emotional. He would
Mm,
kind of get angry and stuff. And it was kind of funny because while he was drawing, it would kind of help me write. It would clear my
mhm.
head from my own thinking because I was listening to him. And
Okay.
then the newer thoughts would come in and I just write them down.
Yeah. And one thing I do as well to get my creative thinking is just going for a walk. Going from for a long, maybe 45 minute to an hour walk, I think also helps. That's my opinion, especially when you're around nature, because you have nothing but scenery, and that can help you just trap thoughts in your head and
One of
build
the
on that
biggest
story.
one of the biggest keys that I got from listening to other people or like writers and whatnot was Stephen King's thought of, hey, if you hit a roadblock on this one book, why not jump to another book and then just jump back? I mean, that's helped me
Yeah,
out a great deal.
yeah, that would help. You got to have a really broad imagination, but yeah, but kudos to Stephen King.
Yeah.
He's a freak. He's a freak of nature when it comes to writing. What a genius. Um, But no, definitely. If you guys do have any creative questions you want to shout out to Think Indie Podcast, please reach us on our socials, Twitter, Facebook, and the likes, even comiccrusaders.com. Reach out to Almega as well. You never know, we might have some awesome questions that we haven't thought of, and we can definitely get our creative team to shout out. Moving along, and we're going to be talking about Webtoon. I'm intrigued, Rabbit. You chose this title,
Uh,
and
I think it was
It,
Manny that chose this.
oh, it was Manny. I beg your
Yeah.
pardon, Manny. See, yes, that's correct. You chose the Kickstarter. My apologies, but Manny, I wish Manny were here to explain why he chose this because this book was something else.
It was cute.
Yes, it, it really was. So it's an intriguing story. It's called The Legendary Fossil, available on Webtoon. Issues 1 to 3 are available. Issues 4 onwards, you have to subscribe to actually read the rest. Created by Chun Jong, so I believe it's a Korean creator. It's about a character named Kang Yeren who was hit by a truck. Not sure if he died or not, but his mind actually went into a fantasy world under the name of Ashley Ute, who's the second daughter of a noble household. So she's like a rich upstart, from a noble family. Um, Kind of reminds me of that. I guess Marie Antoinette versus, I guess, the Legend of Zelda. Um, so I'd like to.
I've got to say that whenever I was looking at this, it kind of brought me back to uh, Fantasy Star, kind of the video
Mm,
game, the little cartoons on there.
yes, true. It really is a an interesting story, and she's in a conflicting world. Like she's rich, very very rich, but at the same time she's got a lot of challenges. Life isn't easy being being a second daughter because her elder daughter is an absolute bitch, and she is like freaky as hell.
Mm.
um, but overall, what did you think of the writing in the Legendary Fossil?
I like the writing. It was really smooth. It definitely utilized the webtoons way that it kind of shows it stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought the writing was definitely kind of on par where it was kept the pace of going smooth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of felt like the pages were quite long, so you had to scroll down, and sometimes I actually forgot what the previous words were, so I had to go back again, which is probably ideal when you have Webtoon because you have to scroll up and down when you're flowing through the screens. Oh my goodness! Look who's joined us! Hey, Manny.
I
Hey.
Hey,
survived. I survived.
you arrived. So,
Mm.
okay, Manny. So we're up to Webtoon now. This
Cool.
was your pick, the legendary fossil.
Yeah,
Why did you choose the legendary fossil?
man. Honestly, the first thing that caught my eye was the artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Satoshi Urushihari. He's manga and anime master.
Mm-hmm.
He created Plastic Little and a few other animes. I've been following him for years.
Okay.
Langreiser. And he's this artwork is very similar to that of Plastic Little, which I love. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow,
Mm-hmm.
this looks beautiful. And
Yes.
the story is pretty cool too. It reminds me of like a video game vibe. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and I got to give credit to the art as well by Abu. So Abu, I'm not sure where Abu is hailing from, but I know the writer is definitely from Korea. But
yeah,
yeah, but the story though, we are just talking about the story just before you jumped on, Manny. It is quite intriguing with the way this character Kang Yeren gets hit by a truck and then suddenly he's transformed into a female's body from a fantasy world, and
right,
he's like living through her thoughts and memories and what she is going through in this household where her older sister's an absolute bitch.
Hmm.
Um,
yeah,
to put it nicely.
yeah,
But then you see the art scene with the Demon King, and then I'm like, whoa, like this is like next level, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. She's I have a feeling that her sister is somehow responsible for her parents' death. I don't know. She gives me that vibe.
believe that too. I believe that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so in saying that, so Rabbit, I'll turn to you. If you were like looking for something new on Webtoon, what would be some takeaways from the legendary fossil that you would give to people who are intrigued in checking this out?
I definitely like he said, it makes you feel like an older style video game, like Fantasy Star for me, and it kind of pulled me in that way with those characters just so beautifully
Mm-hmm.
drawn, and the way they were weaved together. It really was a nice, open, smooth kind of story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about you, Manny? What would you say to new people checking out the legendary fossil?
Yeah, if you like Final Fantasy, if you like I don't know, the Legend of Zelda,
Mm-hmm.
all those old video games, then you're definitely gonna like this. It's basically it's that same vibe. The hero that she's almost like unwilling, like she's an unwilling,
Mm-hmm.
like unlikely hero, I guess. Um,
Yes.
she would rather just go through life, just chilling, relaxing, not having to do anything, but she gets thrust into this battle.
So she'd rather be like Paris Hilton, in other words.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But
Like live
yeah,
the rich life.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Enjoy
Yeah.
the fruits of somebody else's labor.
Hmm. And I do like some of the scenes when they have the characters in their natural illustrated form, and then they have the chibi versions when they're sort of like going through these emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that's very clever. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Like even
Manga,
the big. So I keep
yeah,
going.
in manga they do a lot. They do that a lot. They to express like really like if they're really upset or they're really happy, they turn into these chibi little characters.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
But definitely check it out. The Legendary Fossil issues 1 to 3 is available on Webtoon. Um, we'll be moving on now to our book review. And this week's book is called Dijon Hunter. When I hear Dijon Hunter, I'm like hunting through the fridge looking for my favorite mayonnaise. But this is different. This is actually a book by Jay Sandlin with art by Fabrizio Cosentino, script editor Sina Ale, cover art by Lucas Meyer and Valinian Di Napoli. Um, I'd love to hear your take on this because I think this is visually appealing. I think this is a very beautifully drawn book. Rabbit, what did you think of Dijon Hunter?
I loved it. I mean, I thought it was a little bit more complex than a little bit other books, but it really meshed well whenever, you were going from one scene to another, and they kind of were talking about the wishes and whatnot. It really
Mhm.
worked for me.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was a lot of action. Like I was expecting this to be a long read. I probably read it in like half the time I would read a normal book, even though there is a lot of text in there, there's a lot of dialogue, but the action sequences just got me hooked. Manny, what did you think of the art style?
Oh my God, I love this artwork.
Yes.
From the thing I love the most is that the art you see in the cover is the art you see on the inside, and it's
Hmm.
absolutely a sight to behold, man. Every page is
Yes.
just it's just beautiful, beautiful.
Hmm.
Every detail, the colors are amazing.
Hmm.
And the story is I agree with you. When you first start reading, you're like, oh, this is gonna be like an epic fantasy, and I'm sure it's gonna continue and it's gonna turn into that. But
Yes.
you get a whole story in one issue, and it goes by really fast. It's fast paced, but it explains everything really clearly.
Yes.
You get to know the characters, their motivations. It's a really really good book.
Yeah. No, I was pleasantly surprised. Pleasantly surprised. Um, and the characters were likable, even though we it is only a single issue. It's a story beginning to end, but wow, seriously, I was truly surprised. It kind of has that
Yeah.
Sailor Moon versus like like fantasy. Wouldn't really know what fantasy to compare it to in comic book form, but then the art style in this, the coloring especially,
Yeah, it's
like the
amazing.
colors are, the backgrounds, like crazy cool. But Rabbit, if you're a person that like is looking for a different book to read in indie, why would people want to choose Dijun Hunter?
Well, I would tell them to pick this up if you love the beautiful colors. And like I said, the story was so complex, but really simple to get into. And that
Yeah.
was one of the
Yeah,
main things for me. I mean, definitely the colors, but I mean, it was from beginning to end, it kept you just on the seat because I didn't exactly know where it was going, but it definitely led you down a road that you wanted to go down.
yeah. How
Yeah.
about you, Manny? What would you say to new readers?
I mean, there's a lot to love about this book. It's crazy how in just one issue, you meet these new characters that I've never seen before, and I already feel for them. Like you
Hmm.
can tell there's a lot of backstory from the little they say,
Yeah.
and you feel when somebody gets hurt, somebody when something
Oh
happens at the
yeah.
end, you're like, damn man. And it's
Yeah.
crazy how we just met these characters, and
I
you're so
know.
attached already. uh,
Yeah.
and 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 when the story starts, it gives you, it's such a simple notion of just taking advantage of somebody's suffering.
Yeah.
That's how the
Yeah.
book starts. You see somebody suffering. Okay, this is, I'm gonna take advantage of this, and
Hmm.
that's how the book starts. And you're like, damn, that's smart, cold blooded but smart. So yeah, there's a lot to like about this book besides the beautiful art. The art is just a
Yeah.
cherry on top.
I know, right? But oh man, I was gutted when I found out that one of the characters got hurt. But
Yeah, right.
fortunately, due to magic, there's no ending in sight. So definitely,
Right.
I mean, seriously, I really applaud this book. Black Box Comics, which I've never heard of before. You can check them out at blackboxcomics.net. And seriously, I want to cover this publisher for one episode of Thundercats because, like, some of the content I've seen on their website, I'm like, but I've never heard of this publisher before. So great.
Yeah,
Yes,
I agree.
kudos to Dijon Hunter because it's amazing. Like
I agree.
when I read the title, I wasn't really that involved, but once I read the book, you could just never judge a book by its cover. So cliche, but true.
Right. And there's so many little nuances in the book. Even the war balloons, the graphic design of the book, man, it's just, yeah, this is a treat.
Yeah, most definitely. Any final thoughts, Rabbit?
I think it was a great book. I mean, if you get a chance to read it, like they said, it's beautiful artwork that you see on the cover, and the characters are just so relatable, and you can feel them. The
Hmm.
story's so complex, but easy to grasp.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely check it out. Yeah, and I mean, if you can see the panels we're looking at right now, you'd just be amazed at the beauty, and even just the small panels, like just crazy with the amount of detail and the emotion. It's just beautiful. Yes, and here's
Yep.
their socials. Check them out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, blackboxcomics.net. Do yourself a favor and check them out. All right, now we're moving on to Indiegogo. And the book that I picked this week for Indiegogo is called Chronicles of Faith, David, issue number 2, from Brainy Pixel. At the moment, they are sitting on a target of $10,028 as their flexible goal. And with from this stage, there's 10 days to go. I believe it's 8 days to go now since I posted this image. And it is a Christian book telling Christian stories. I'm not Christian myself, but just from what I'm reading, so if this is the same David that fought Goliath, I would be intrigued because obviously anyone anyone in the world would know David versus Goliath means that you're a person who's going against odds that are greater than that are great. It could be because obviously Goliath was a giant. David was just an average human, and it's just a word we use nowadays when we're challenging something bigger than ourselves. Mm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the art in this looks absolutely amazing. That's one thing I was intrigued about. It is an all ages book.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not Christian, but was David meant to be this young, or is this could this be a story of him growing up? So that's what I'm worried. That's what I'm interested in. If that's how his life was, that he was always challenged by odds. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think he was. I don't think he was a kid. I think he was just like a teenager. He was just small compared to a giant. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is David and Goliath, and he eventually becomes King David. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So this is a it is a Christian story. You know, it's a Bible story, but it's such a known story and such a
Hmm.
uplifting story. You know, who he becomes and how important he becomes for to the world. And
Hmm.
yeah, the artwork is absolutely amazing. I think the artwork was done by animators. None they weren't from what I read in the Indiegogo campaign. I don't believe they were comic book artists per se. I think they
Hmm.
were animators and storyboard artists, and they the creator got them together, and they came up with this. I mean, it looks amazing.
Yes, it does,
Yeah, it
and
looks
that's one thing
beautiful.
we kind of covered off air was that the artists weren't mentioned or credited. So
Right.
I'm just wondering if in the actual book themselves they are credited, because I think it's worthwhile noting who the creators are, because I'd love to be able to shout out all the creators who are involved, because that's why we do what we do. We love we are creators ourselves, and we got to applaud our creative team. So yeah, just something to mention. But
Yeah.
the book does look amazing, and as I said, I'm not Christian, so a book like this would actually be interesting, because I like to know a little bit about world history, and just
Yeah.
knowing like I love Greek mythology, and I think Greek mythology is amazing. But I'd like to know a little bit about Christian, Christian stories as well, because
Right.
obviously there are things in there a little bit fantasy, and yeah, I'd be intrigued and wanting to, and like because it's comic book, obviously I want to read it.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, so I mean, if this book is something within your taste, or if you feel like you want to support an Indiegogo creator, please check out Brainy Pixel. They've got many other Christian stories, and hopefully I'll get to interview them one day for Think Indie Pod. So definitely keep your feelers out, because Brainy Pixel are making a lot of books. Um, so do yourself a favor and check them out when you get a chance.
Yep.
Um, so definitely, yeah, it really looks amazing. Like I just love the lettering as well,
Yeah.
and the level of detail in the art. Okay, we're going to be moving on now. This is going to be exciting, because I love talking about old comics. And First Comics were a publisher that came out in 1983. They shut their doors in 1992. So literally 30 years ago, they closed their doors. But at one stage, they were pretty much in the top three. First Comics were up there, and one thing about it, I don't know about what you guys think, but when I look at a First Comics book, I could almost from a glance they look like a book from the big two. And the reason
Absolutely.
is because a lot of their creators were from the big two,
Yep.
self-published. But Manny, like, what does First Comics mean to you? Being a buying your comics book guy, you love your indie comics. What is special about First Comics to you?
Like you say, they quality wise, they were on par with the big two, because they
Mhm.
were the same creators. Um, and I actually, when I began collecting comics, I was never a fan of them. I never even knew about them. And
Mhm.
as I started doing buying the comics day, I started coming up finding all these first comics, and I was like, I was very intrigued. I have bunches of them.
Hey.
I
Wow.
have I mean, I have, yeah, anything from Dress Star to what's the right here? I have Star Slayer. I have, man. There's so many. And yeah, right. For example, just looking right here at Dress Star. They're written by Peter David. I mean, Peter David is a known creator of the Hulk and wrote many of the Marvel
Yes.
characters. So there's nothing to sneeze at, you know.
No, 100%. And I mean, first stories from Dreadstar was like written and illustrated by Jim Starlin because that's what he did at that time. He worked on
Right.
Warlock, writer artist, Captain Marvel, writer artist. Like he was a man for
Yeah.
fantasy, also cosmic.
Right.
No, but definitely not one to sneeze at. I mean, and they were one of the first publishers to actually take advantage of the direct market as well. They didn't really do the newsstands all that much, like Marvel and DC did. But Rabbit, what were your thoughts? Sorry, I forgot to ask you. What were your thoughts on First Comics? Were you a fan?
I wasn't very familiar with them. I did have one or two back in the day. They had so many titles out, but I never really got into them that much. Beautiful
Yeah.
comics from what I've seen, and again, like I
Mhm.
said, I've only had one or two whenever I had my collection back then. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, they look amazing.
Yeah. So, what we'll do, we'll go through some of the titles that I have here. So, this is E-Man by Nick Cootie and art by Joe Stanton. These were Staten. These were the original creators from Charlton Comics. So when Joe Stanton came to first, he brought E-Man with him from Charlton because, Charlton. Charlton shut shop, and he was one of the only creators to actually be able to take his character with him.
Wow.
Yeah, so now obviously Charlton's owned by DC, but E-Man stuck with the creator, which was amazing. And now we have Psycho Blast, written by Stephen Grant with art by Rob Phipps. Both creators went on to, well, especially Stephen Grant. He went on to Marvel and did a whole bunch of stuff for Marvel and DC after this. So this was his platform. But look at the art. Like, the art is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You've got the volcano holding the tank in his hand. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously American Flag by Howard Chaykin,
Right.
writer artist. This is a wicked book, I've got to tell you. It's it's yes, politically incorrect, but amazing at the same time. It's a satire book, and
Right.
it's not for everyone, but if you have a good sense of humor, you would love it. If this were a HBO show, oh, it would be off the charts, I'll tell you.
No doubt.
Yes, we mentioned Dreadstar.
Yeah.
Great book. This, if you're a fan of Stalin's work on Warlock and Captain Marvel, jumping to this would be easy because it's very
Right.
similar.
I
And then
agree.
we've got Warp by Peter B. Gillis, and art by Frank Brunner. So Frank Brunner is obviously a known artist throughout DC and Marvel.
Yep.
But this was actually a stage play. It was a comic book influenced stage play in Broadway, and this is a comic book adaptation. Like, can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah, I was
I
doing my
did not know that.
research. I was like blown away. And the stage play was influenced by Doctor Strange and Thor.
What?
Wow.
I did not know that.
No, me neither. And if this were on Broadway, I'd go see it tomorrow. I'd be flying to
No
America.
doubt, man.
Yeah. And then we have Star Slayer by Mike Grell, writer artist. And if you can get the early issues, you will get the story of the Rocketeer. So the backup story is the Rocketeer in all these issues. So quite valuable now, especially issues 1 and 2.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Good luck
absolutely.
finding it.
Yeah, so amazing. John Sable freelance, also by Mike Grell. I love
Right.
the Sergio Aragone's art at the bottom right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nexus.
Nexus.
Yes, Mike Barron and Steve Rude. I swear to God, how Steve Rude wasn't picked up by the big two before First Comics blows my mind.
Man,
Absolutely. Obviously, he's known now, but back then he was an unknown.
Steve Rude, he does some Kirby illustrations in his style, but man, they
Yeah,
look so freaking amazing.
pick a
I think the problem with Steve Rude, and I hate I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I think for a long time he had alcohol issues.
Mhm.
So the companies, were iffy about hiring him and stuff like that. But he's been doing his own book Nexus. He's been doing it on his own for a while now, and
Mhm.
he's been kicking ass for a long
Yeah.
time.
The thing with Rude as well, interiors is very house style comic book art, but on the covers it almost I say almost emphatically, it's like almost like Alex Ross style. Like if you look at this cover right here of Nexus,
Yeah.
it has that realistic look to it.
Yeah,
Not to say it is like Alex Ross, but it's that style, that realistic
Right.
look to it. Whereas the interiors are very much house style. So you'd think it'd be done by two artists.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's crazy at how good his art is.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And then we have Mike Barron again with Steve Butler, the Badger.
The Badger. I have a
Yeah,
bunch of those.
yes, but Badger's one of those characters like Nexus have been jumping from publisher to publisher since for closure because
Yeah.
obviously the creators have more stories to tell. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean their legacy though, like I want to ask you guys about what you think of the legacy of First Comics because they are important. Because they were the areas of the ability to have create their own work, whereas in the big two, if they made their own comics, they'd be owned by those publishers. So Manny, why is First Comics legacy important in today's standards?
I think they opened a lot of people's eyes. For example, the image comics creators,
Mm-hmm.
they show that it could be done. It could you
Yes.
could go outside of the big two and have I mean they had almost what 10 years or had
Yeah. Well,
a long run.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So they show that you don't have to do what these people say, or you don't have to tell the story they want you to tell. You can just go on and tell your own stories, and be under a label like First Comics. So I think it
Yeah.
opened a lot of people's eyes that there's other avenues that we can go.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Rabbit? I know that obviously you haven't had much exposure to First, but their legacy must be felt somewhere.
Oh, definitely. I think they're a jumping board. I mean, to be able to create your own character and have it carried on for so long, everybody had to have seen it. I know I
Hmm.
didn't really know them too well, but I did know that there were a few main characters that had lived on afterwards, and just for them to do that is kind of eye opening to everybody else. So I mean,
Hmm.
it definitely
Yeah,
opened a lot of doors.
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
sad too, because when First closed, Image started, like it carried
yeah,
over. Imagine if Image was the brand to actually take these creators on board. You know what I mean? Like what would have been?
yeah.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
sad to think about, but definitely, if you do jump into your local comic book store, if you go to conventions and find these old boxes of comics that in the $1 bins, or hopefully you'd find some of these in there and check them out because you'd be
Yeah.
blown away at the quality.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, because the quality is amazing. Like as I said, and like, I'm sure you guys can agree. You look at this Badger cover right here. You'd put you'd almost like recolor it, and it might actually look like Wolverine or Sabretooth. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
quality is there. The quality is there, and it looks amazing. But definitely, yeah, it is sad to think about, but the memories live on, and us as comic book indie comics fans, we carry on their legacy.
yes
All
sir.
right. So we're moving on now to Kickstarter. And Rabbit, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why you chose this book, because I actually had a lot of joy flicking through this.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of the people that are actually on it, including the editor, Chuck Panay. He's
Mhm.
actually the one that edited my last comic. I've been on Travis Gibbs' show once or twice, and I got to talk to him. And a lot of people have told me, as a brand new creator, if you had any questions, if you wanted some advice, go talk to him. If you ever kind of hit that stumbling block, I never really
Mhm.
did, but I having talked to him on his show, he was a great guy, and he's got this amazing book, and he's thrown a lot of people in there, and I just thought it was great.
Yeah. One thing about Travis Gibb as well, 13 books created. Look at how many he's backed. 635 he's backed. So he's supported, like, what's that, 600 times more than what he's actually made. I think that's absolutely amazing. I think that's great for a creator. We talked about this on Thundercats with Brian
Brian.
Polito
Yep.
supporting the industry. And Travis Gibbs up there. And just to give credit to his book, is Cthulhu Invades Wonderland. But yeah, I'm really pleased that you chose a book, a rabbit or a creation here on Kickstarter of people that you know, because it's one way of, shout out to those who've supported you over the years, I believe. So means a lot. I love
Yeah.
this. So what we're seeing here is bookmarks of Cthulhu. It looks like he's almost in like in the wrestling guys, like he's wearing his trunks and the Ultimate Warrior armbands. I think this is absolutely cute. I love it. Like on one side of the bookmark, it's very realistic, very scary, eerie, and on the back is very comical and cute. That's awesome. Um, but you guys a fan of Cthulhu? Manny, are you a fan?
Seriously, I've never even read a story like a Lovecraft story
Mm-hmm.
ever.
No,
But
that's really great.
obviously I know about Cthulhu because who doesn't, right?
Yes, exactly.
He's become like a cultural phenomenon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never actually from what I hear the whole Cthulhu stories or Lovecraftian stories are very dark and just this they are about despair and I don't know. That's not my style. But
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like I haven't read it as well, but not sure. Maybe if it was made into a movie, like an actual movie adaptation that actually means what the story is wanting to tell, I'd be really keen to watch that. But
yeah,
again, but I think it's like 100 years old or more. These stories.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
wow.
that looks amazing though.
Yeah, this art here is absolutely gorgeous. The Cheshire Cat looks a little bit like Panther, in my opinion,
Yeah.
from Us as the Universe. But look how
And this
scary
being
he looks.
and this being a collective story, there's so many different stories that you can jump into and just kind of get
Mhm.
lost. And then if you don't like one story, there's like several other ones. This is actually a
Yeah.
second commitment. The first one was Cthulhu Invades Oz, I believe, and then
Yes,
this
it
is
was.
Oh,
Cthulhu
that's
Invades
true.
Wonderland.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
Yeah.
just such great books, and like I said, there's so many talented people in this book that it's just kind of hard to not look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just reading the credits as well, it says here Lovecraft meets Wonderland in this amazing anthology packed with superstar creators from Scout Comics, Source Point Press, Mad Cave, and more.
Wow.
So we've got creators here that are just, indie creators, of course, working for indie publishers, jumping on this just to have a bit of fun and just tell an obscure story, which I love. Like that's the thing. I've not really read much of Baum or Lovecraft, but I'd love to read this.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, I'd love to read this. And the art here is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's very colorful, it's very deep, a little bit scary. And
Yeah,
here
that
we
was
see
great.
some Alice down the Cthulhu hole. And yeah, and I mean the art is very it's like very cartoonish, but it almost looks like something you'd find in a billboard or maybe a newspaper article type of poster.
Yeah,
I think it looks great.
I love that artwork actually. Yeah,
Yeah, yes it is. Yeah, absolutely love that. And then we have this one.
Man.
Yes. This kind of reminds me of May Gibbs. And if you're not familiar with May Gibbs, she's an Australian artist. The chocolate pudding, which is very much in this art style, a little bit of water paint. And I mean, if you're not familiar with May Gibbs, do Google her because her art is kind of similar to what we're seeing right now. And it's very like very old style illustration, which reminds me of what I'm seeing right here. Dodo and the Last of Its Kind. Yeah, definitely.
It's hard to miss with this anthology because there's so many different styles, but everything I've seen so far is off the chain. I mean, everything looks amazing.
Yes,
And
indeed.
it's so many great people just coming together, putting so
I
many
mean,
stories together, and it's all that different art and different
Mhm.
creative writing. It's hard to miss whenever you come to something like this.
I know, right?
man, look at that! Look at that! Look at those panels, dude. That's
Yes.
freaking crazy.
Yeah, so we have here the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland and her army of cards, the heart cards, 8 of Hearts.
Damn.
Yeah, looks great.
And we
And I
will rip
love
out your hearts.
yeah, we and we will rip out their hearts.
That's freaking dope.
Yeah, and written by Matt Kund with art by Erton Sayan, letters by Ace Gizem Sayan. So bit of a family connection there with the art and letters. But definitely looks great. I'm actually digging this a lot.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that looks dope. Matt Kuhn actually is one of the writers in Berserker for Boom,
Oh,
if I'm
that's
not
Mad
mistaken.
Kind. Yeah, that's Mad
Oh,
Kind.
that's my kind. My kind. Okay.
Yeah. Similar
Yeah,
similar.
very similar.
And here we see Tweedledee and Tweedledum with two different types of art style.
Oh man.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the image, I didn't even have to read what it was, and I knew it was Tweedledee and Tweedledum. That was great. That's one thing I liked. Like, even though they look very different to what I saw in the Disney adaptation, but looks absolutely amazing.
It's different, but it's familiar and close enough that you know
Yes.
who it is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see what connection Cthulhu has, because in the images that we've seen, there's not really any involvement with Cthulhu. But no, it's definitely intrigued us to see what happens on how they're actually intertwined.
Yeah.
So let's have a look here. So as of today, they're at 36,000 out of their target of 39,000. So very, very close. But they have 20 days to go. So
And you also got to
36,000.
remember. You also got to remember that this is an anthology that's huge value for your money whenever you're looking at all the pages and all the artists that are in this. It's definitely, like I said, worth a look at, because I mean, you can see the beautiful pages whenever you look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it looks like a lot of money, but there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know what I mean? They didn't really list. I think they listed a handful of names, but they said more at the end. So it's like, God.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not just the artists and the writers; the people on the back end as well. So, it's and that's the thing about Kickstarter. They need to, these books are self-funded, and a lot of people spend a lot of money in creating these books, and at the same time, they got to earn their money back by creating these amazing content, and also shipping the books out as well for the creators. So,
yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, and also too, if you did miss out on Cthulhu Invades Oz, that's also one of the bonuses that you can get when
Oh,
you
cool.
when you support this book, so
Yeah.
you can pick up the last issue. So yeah, if you missed out, don't worry, you can get yourself a copy. And it does look like loads of fun, and that's the thing. We want comic books that are fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think this is a great project that Travis Gibbs put together. And I'd just like to
definitely.
throw it out there that he's got his production company, Orange Cones Production, and he's got a line of books that are great as well. But I mean, this is, to me, amazing that he would put this together.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%,
I agree.
100%. And yeah, I like stuff that just comes out that's obscure, but we gotta have fun, guys. Like it
Yeah.
can't always be serious life stories. Like I don't mind life stories, and please, we want life stories, but we need fantasy as well. We need fun. We need
Li-
stuff to get to.
Life is already depressing enough. Let's have some fun making comics.
Exactly. Exactly. 100%. Well said, Manny. Well said. And that's the end of the of all the slides. So we had a lot of fun covering a whole lot of comic books. Manny, we did touch on Buy Indie Comics Day. Would you like to have some final thoughts on why Buy Indie Comic Books Day is important to the industry?
uh well, it's important because indie comics are important. We have to unite. We're stronger together. Yeah, I think we need to have that. We need to have at least one day in the year that we all get together globally and we just celebrate indie comics and their creators, man.
Yeah, so we touched on at the beginning of the show. Please reach out to your local comic book stores. Ask them to jump on and and support indie comics. If you're a creator, if you want to sit at a table and draw and meet your fans, like it'll be a great opportunity.
Yeah. Re-
Get more butts in the door.
yeah, no doubt. Reach out to us on Twitter, on Facebook, by Indie Comics Day, and we'll figure out a way to help you and contact the local comic shops around your area, and we'll get this ball rolling, man. Let's do it.
Absolutely. All right. So going to be wrapping up now, guys. Thank you so much for joining the Think Indie podcast. Any final thoughts, Rabbit?
I just want to say I hope everyone's going to have a great week. God bless you and your family and everybody around, and get a comic.
Yeah, no doubt.
Preach. How about you, Manny? Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just man, stay safe. Be kind to one another, and yeah, just be the best person you can be.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any requests, any questions for our Think Indie Pod, please reach us out on Twitter and Facebook. We're always active. Even reach out to myself, Dodgy86 in the mix. You can also, where can we find you, Rabbit? What's your Twitter handle?
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Paul Gomez 790. Paul Gomez 790.
How about you, Manny? Where can we find you?
You can find me at Truthful Comics on Twitter.
Truthful Comics.
Yep.
Yes. Jump onto Truthful Comics. Check out Manny's amazing content as well as Rabbit's. You'll find his also on his socials. And
Yep.
guys, thank you so much for joining us on Think Indie Podcast. Please click like and subscribe to get more from us through Comic Crusaders. Also, check us out at comiccrusaders.com. Search Think Indie Podcast. You'll find us there. And you can also listen to us through all your podcast facilities as well as on YouTube. On behalf of all of us here at Think Indie Podcast, have yourself a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this Comic Crusaders production. For real-time news on all things pop culture, please feel free to follow us on social media. For articles, original content, merchandise, and more, please go to www.comiccrusaders.com. Also follow along with all of the websites of the Comic Crusaders family. As always, if you like this content, please click like and subscribe to the Comic Crusaders YouTube channel.